intuitively, though, I took all the right steps, and I feel so blessed for that. How on earth, back then in my early 40s, I knew that when I fake something, I can actually make it? You tell me. I knew nothing of the kind, and I'm honest. And since you mentioned before, some people may feel, oh, it's a cliche to say you are blissful when you create, and it's a cliche saying that, you knew something. Honestly, I did. So when I had this emotional moment with my daughter, and reached the rock bottom, asking me whether I was going to be here for her the following day, I woke up. Immediately, I woke up.
Welcome to Season 3 of Mind the Shift. My name is Anders Bolling, and I'm the host of this podcast. Today, in this episode, we will talk about the mind-body connection. We'll talk about the importance of connecting with nature, and I'm sure a lot of other things. I'm very happy today to have as my guest a friend and podcast colleague from Slovenia, Branka Androjna. Welcome to the show, Branka.
Thank you, Anders. Such a pleasure to be in your company and on your podcast.
Well, thank you. Now, we are friends in this very modern way, you might say, because we haven't really met in real life, which is a bit odd, but this is so common these days because we got to know each other during this podcast course that we both took last summer, and then we've been in touch online all along, and we've been following each other's careers, or whatever you should call it, in the podcast world. So but you also have an artist name, or a pen name, or a nom de guerre, or whatever you might call it, Milangela or Milangela. How do I pronounce
in Slovenian? That would be Milangela.
Milangela.
So it would be like the one that is gentle and the one that is angelic. So the combination of these two meanings.
Yeah.
Loving, kind, angelic to people. Mila actually is my second name alongside Branka. Mm-hmm. And it's always been my dream to have that retreat. But back then, many years ago, I was dreaming along the lines of having that retreat in a physical form, so to say, like sort of, converted barns where people could go and come together and sing and listen to a concert, just, spend some time together. That never materialized, unfortunately. But in this digital world, seemingly, the dot just got connected. And during one of the events that we went to, my husband and myself, and it was by Doreen Virtue, and she was talking about all those energies, and she calls them angels. So during one of the breaks, my husband turned to me and said to me, "Tell you what, you're not Mila, you are Milangela." And Milangela, because you are kind to people. Your mission in life, I suppose, is to touch other people's hearts. So that's how the name, came by.
And the podcast is named after that. You use that name when you...
I use that name for my podcast. And since I combine nature and spirituality, I thought the name Milangela Soul Garden would be like a nice welcoming name to let everyone understand that, yes, you are welcome and you can be treated well, and we'll take care of whatever is that burdens you.
And you are, I said artist name, which is probably appropriate because you are artistic, obviously, and you're good at crafts, as far as I understand. And for those who are watching this on YouTube, they can see that behind you are some beautiful paintings, and you have painted them yourself, all of them. flowers
Yes.
and
Flowers. I mean, I'm a flower girl. I
yeah.
just love flowers. It's always been like that. I'm a romantic, so so flowers are just so very much part of my life. But it's also, I mean, it's nature altogether. And when I'm creative, I am one with gods. I dare say I'm not here. So creativity for sure is very, very deeply rooted in me and very much part of me, part of who I intrinsically am.
Maybe I think you told me before at some point, or wrote to me that creativity is really at the core, as you say, and central. And maybe some people aren't that creative, actually, which is a bit sad if that's the case. Or maybe it's that, I mean, I see it as creativity is actually the essence of what we are and who we are. And many people forget that, or they have some kind of veil in front of their creativity. They don't let themselves be creative. What's your view on that? Do you think that we are more or less creative, or more or less veiled, so to speak, behind some other?
Thank you for bringing this up. I mean, speaking of you, Anders, are you creative? Would you say you are creative? I know you're a journalist, so I would imagine you write a lot. And in my book, in my view, this is how you are creative, I would say. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. I think I'm creative. I'm a creative person, and as you say, my creativity takes the form of writing in most cases. I have tried some, not painting, but drawing when I was younger, and I was not bad at it, but I wasn't very good at it, so I didn't continue doing that. But that was I liked that. And then I can sing fairly well, but I've never practiced. I mean, I've never learned how to play an instrument or anything like that, which is a bit sad. But so I think writing is my kind of creativity conduit.
So what do you think really is that thing that stops people, that prevents them to be creative? Because I'm asking you this because one of Brené Brown's amazing statements is that creativity got shamed out of us. So, I mean, what, in your view, is that thing that prevents us from indulging in creativity? Because for me, that's a big question.
It's a big question, and maybe we should say something about Brené Brown. Who is Brené Brown?
Brené Brown is a doctor in social sciences, and she's incredibly good in pointing out various difficulties along the way of life. Let me put it this way. Amazing teacher, amazing person. And I just love listening to her because what she talks about is the very basic principles of life, of how we are entitled to be happy, to lead a happy life. And it's a blessing if you work in a job that is also your hobby. That's perfect. But not many of us do that, right? So if you work like all day long to earn your living, that's fine. We all need to do that. But if at the end of the day, that got you tired, depleted, frustrated, then in my view, and in hers definitely, you are on the wrong path. Or at least you should do something alongside that would make your heart happy, joyful, that you would feel and be fulfilled. Not having that, I mean, we are human beings. We are not animals. We have, okay, animals have food and shelters, and that's about it, right? And of course, love. But to my knowledge, they are not really creative in terms of, I mean, the way we humans are. But we humans, we need to find that special language where we have that beautiful conversation with the divine, with the collective intelligence, be it writing, be it journaling, be it painting, be it gardening, be it making things, out of wood, metal, you name it. The list of creativities is endless.
Yeah, and I think it's good that you say that, because often people tend to, as we have been doing here, to a large extent, couple this with artistic skills and things like that. But I mean, it can be anything really. To be creative is to be, I think, be able to just manifest what you want to experience in life, or what people you want to meet, or whatever, you know. If you dream of a place where you want to go, or some people that you want to meet, or if you're looking for love or whatever, if you're creative, you have the ability, I think, to manifest that in first in a non-physical form within you, in a way. But then if you follow that passion, you follow your heart, you will eventually, I think, experience this in one way or another.
I'm not really talking about that art and craft sort of thing, in that very fundamental, basical sort of meaning. What I'm talking about is when I create, say when I paint, I get so absorbed in what I do. I'm not here. I'm not thirsty. I'm not hungry. I don't notice anyone. So, usually the process with me is I paint for 2 days with no one around, and then I step back. I awaken to what emerged, to what what I made, and I said, "Oh, not too bad," but I was not here. And this is like, to me, this is like at first it's like flirting with the divine, and then it's like making love to that magical, divine, collective intelligence. You're not here. It's like it's blissful. It's entirely blissful, and I believe that this bliss is something that, when experienced, is special and therefore part of the healing process.
Or maybe you are actually very much here when you paint. You can see it that way as well. You're truly present.
Mindful. I would say mindful. I would say
mindful, because that might be if you listen to some other spiritual teachers who are talking about this, the importance of being present and waking up from the illusion of everything that's happening. You've heard about, Eckhart
Tolle. Are you talking about being present in the now? Is that what you?
Yeah,
in a way.
If you're painting, if you just focus, if you're in the flow of painting and you're absorbed in that activity, you are actually very much there. And when you step out of it, when you step back, as you say, and look at what you've done, you go back to your chores, your everyday chores, then you're less present, because then your mind starts thinking about what you should do tomorrow and what you did yesterday, and I wonder where my kids are and my husband is, and so forth. Then you're not there.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I am present with every single bit of my heart, and I'm just here and absorbed and fully taking in the energy, and as you said, I'm present. I am rooted here, but also elsewhere. Because I cannot tell you how certain things happen, how I do something. People then ask me, "Oh, that's an interesting detail. So how do you do this?" No idea. Honestly, it's just, and sometimes, in the beginning, my kids, when they were smaller, they might have, come along and asked me something. I never heard anything because I was not here. And they just gave up on me. I thought, Mom's gone. So now they learn to, when I do that, they just move away because it doesn't make any sense. I'm just
you're in a different dimension or something.
Absolutely, I'm different, and I'm elsewhere.
Being in the flow is such a beautiful experience, and it's. I experience it sometimes when I write. And you can say these things, and people who haven't really experienced it, they might think that it's kind of that you're just exaggerating, or you're just saying this because it sounds nice and all that. But it's actually true, because when you're in that flow, you don't really know what is happening. I can write it. I've been now lately dabbling in fiction, actually. So I've been writing short stories and things like that, which is a completely different kind of writing from what I've been doing before. I've been writing nonfiction and books of that kind, which is a different process, because then you're using your thinking mind a lot more, I think. But to write fiction is to actually step out of that thinking mind and be in the flow and just see what happens. And it's really interesting. I mean, of course, it's not like that all the time. I think about characters that I want to use and what they're going to do and all that. But then when I start writing, it can actually for hours on end sometimes be the way that I just write down what's happening, and I'm almost surprised myself at what is happening, because I had no idea where that came from. It just came. It's like I love these expressions. It came to me. It struck me, because that's how it feels. It's not my brain thinking up things. It's more like my brain is a filter receiving these ideas and these things that are coming to me. So that's being in the flow.
Almost like channeling things, and almost simply like pouring ideas onto the paper. Wayne Dyer had a lot to say on this topic, and of course he usually got up in the small hours, and when I say that, I mean 2-3 a.m. in the morning, because he got inspired that early. And he was talking about the very same phenomenon. He said that when he woke up, he just felt that urge to sit down to a piece of paper, because the thoughts just kept coming. He had no idea where from. He wasn't the author of them, at least that's what he said. But he just, was using his hand and was pushing down beautiful things.
Yeah, I think that's how it actually happens, when it's good and when it's authentic. And then some people have a little bit too strong egos, so they tend to boast about it and say that, I did this, I wrote this. But I mean, I must say that it doesn't feel that like I've done it all by myself. Actually, I've just been the kind of a conduit. So anyway, this is very fascinating. You're in Slovenia now. I don't know exactly where you are in Slovenia.
It's actually in the vicinity of our capital, Ljubljana. So it's like 20 minutes from Ljubljana, not far away. But you wouldn't believe it. I mean, it's a teeny tiny village that we live in. You have no idea that the capital is like 20 minutes away. It's such peace and quiet that in the middle of the day, I get deer and rabbits and, fox running around. Peaceful. We have it all. We have the best of both worlds. So I love to say, yeah.
And then your English is excellent. And there is something with you and England, isn't it?
Oh.
I mean, you have a special relationship with England. So what is it with England that fascinates you so much? And
I studied English, and I felt I needed to, of course, brush up on my English. And I did that for the first time when I was 15, and I immediately fell in love with the country. I just, as said before, as a romantic, very sensitive person, what I saw, and I'm talking about the very minute sort of details, and attention paid to every single thing that is part of what makes a home a home. I thought, I feel at home in this country that I had not known before. So I started loving it. And also being a Slav, being part of the Slavic culture, we are entirely different. We are open, we are talkative, I am talkative. To come to England, where people were more or less reserved, not talking much. It was like a sort of a cold shower at first, but I learned that sometimes it's so clever to not talk too much and to just, sort of observe and be there and enjoy the party, enjoy the performance that is going on in front of your eyes. And I was learning then, that learning process started then, as I said, at the age of 15. When I came back, I wanted to go back time and again. And later on, I went there again as an au pair, and I stayed for 2 years. And I also was sandblasting glass. I needed some extra money because I wanted certain other things. And of course, I only had my pocket money that I got from the landlords. And that was an amazing experience. I don't know whether you know what the process is all about. So you take this huge panel of glass and you put it in that box, like a glass box in the back, and then you put your hands into those gloves and you sandblast the panel. Of course, before you put adhesives with various patterns onto the glass, and what is created is I don't know, floral patterns, or basically those panels are used for decorations. I
So
mean,
that's how you create patterns in a sheet of glass. You blast.
That's how you create patterns. Yes, you
That's the
use.
normal way, or can you also use sharp tools or things like that, or is this the way that it's normally done?
You would want to get very fine shades and nuances on the glass, and using any types of tools would be much too harsh, I would imagine. So basically what happens is you blast, you sort of are shooting sand onto that surface.
Yeah.
And dependent on the length, how close or far away you are holding that pistol, it's kind of pistol, the pattern gets more or less sort of indented. So it's I enjoy that a lot.
Is that where your creative side began showing? Or
no, it was just one side of it. I saw the opportunity, I grabbed it, and so I earned some extra money. But yeah.
So what is it with England? Do you think it's kind of did you feel some special kind of energy in that country?
Yeah, I felt like coming home.
And all that.
I felt, funnily enough, I felt like coming home. I have no reason why I would say something like that, but I felt some kind of bond with those people, especially elderly people. And I lived in that old cottage, and next door there was an elderly woman in her 80s or even older. And every now and then she would invite me for a cup of tea, and she wasn't talking much, but the energy that I felt coming from her was just like coming to my granny, and it was special. So I can't explain, Anders. It's like coming home in a way.
Yeah. Maybe you've lived there in earlier lives, past lives.
Who would know that?
Who knows?
The mysticism, the secrecy, just something was there waiting for me and welcoming me, and I just felt at home.
I think it is like that, actually, because it's very common that people feel at home in certain places on Earth that they've never visited before. It's not uncommon. I have experienced it myself, particularly, I would say, in Spain. So I've been to Spain, I don't know how many times, I think about 50 times or something like that. And I almost always feel at home. And I've had it several times, this exact feeling that you're talking about, that I'd land there and I go out of the airport building and just feel like, wow, I'm really this is my place.
This is where I belong. Sometimes
and I also
say
love
this
the
is
climate. I'm from Sweden, and Sweden has a very cold climate, although we have some kind of global warming going on, so it's a little bit less cold. But now, for instance, now it's very windy and 14 degrees and drizzle. It's not good if you're in the middle of August. I think it's terrible. It should be 28 degrees now, but it isn't. So yeah. So I think that's a thing, really, that you can feel that certain places are, you vibrate, your frequency is similar to the frequency in that place in a way. If
sort of being aligned with what's going on
Yeah.
up there in a way, in that funny, mysterious way.
Yeah. So I've never felt that with England. I love England. I love London particularly. I think it's a very nice country and a fantastic city, the city of London, and I love the people. You say that they're not very talkative, but I mean, I come from Sweden, and we would say that English people probably talk more than Swedes. But I mean,
Oh
it's
my
not,
God.
the differences aren't that big actually. It's a bit of a simplification when you put it in these terms. But I know exactly what you're talking about. But I mean, I'm pretty talkative myself, and there are lots of Swedes who talk a lot, and so. But it's good. It's good fun to do these comparisons sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was England, and then I want to ask you, of course, about your podcast and what led you to do this. When we met last summer, you were also in the midst of that course that we took, and so what was it that made you decide to start a podcast?
Well, as I said before, I always wanted to be there for people, to help them endure whatever it was or it is that is bringing them down. Last year, when I started podcasting, basically I decided to do that, to take that leap of faith, to be honest. You know very well that I used to be well, a technical dinosaur, to be quite honest. I'm sort of, a very physical person. I want to feel people. I just love feeling the presence of people. And to enter the digital for me was like being part of that horror movie. It was like I was making all types of jokes with my kids. And they, of course, made jokes with me. Come on, mom, this is horrible. Do something about it. And so I did. I decided to go down this rabbit hole and do some exploration. And it was hard for me. And I was so proud afterwards when I discovered that, yes, this is another thing that I'm capable of doing. I have everything that it takes to do something, to be part of that. And I loved talking to people. Every single interview that I did gave me so very much, really, taught me so many things. And I was only really too happy to be able to share that with my audience. But after a while, I felt I was a bit unhappy still because, okay, so I found the voice, my voice, but it was not the voice telling my story.
No.
And why would I want to do that? I decided to risk that. I mean, and I decided for vulnerability, just so I could help people out there to not fall into those pitfalls, to not be bruised and wounded and scarred the way I was. It takes an awful lot from anyone to go from that cozy, nice, comfortable, safety of your own home and be exposed in that particular way, to talk about the things that happened to me. Was not easy, still not is at times. But basically, I wanted to find the voice to tell my story, to help navigate people to their best lives, to live their natural lives, to be happy and fulfilled, and not to be scared when bad things happen, because they do. I mean, they always and inevitably do. And instead of being paralyzed and in that shock, I would love to tell them, that's okay. Take a deep breath in. Things can be sorted out if only you trust in the process. I was in a bad, form really, in a bad shape. And back then, I didn't know anything of the kind. Intuitively, though, I took all the right steps, and I feel so blessed for that. How on earth, back then in my early 40s, I knew that when I fake something, I can actually make it? You tell me. I knew nothing of the kind, and I'm honest. And since you mentioned before, some people may feel, oh, it's a cliche to say you are blissful when you create, and it's a cliche saying that, you knew something. Honestly, I did. So when I had this emotional moment with my daughter, and reached the rock bottom, asking me whether I was going to be here for her the following day, I woke up immediately. And before I had been ready to just leave, because I understood if the medical doctors believe that the time is right for me to do so, I probably must. That's how silly I was at the time. But my daughter asking me that question, whether I was going to be here for them the next day, woke me up. And from that moment on, I was taking all the right steps. I was faking being fine. And then I said time and again to myself, I mean, how can they be sure? Maybe they made a mistake. I don't feel bad. I'm fine. I can walk, I can think, I can do so many things. I'm not ill. You see, I was faking the things. I had my diagnosis in my arms.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because you're into this now. You're talking about what you have labeled as your downward spiral in life, and that which took you to these latest steps that you've taken in life. But you were ill, and for many years were in a bad shape.
I was in a bad. I put myself in that bad shape because probably I wanted too much out from life, and I expected certain things from people that were not able to give that to me. And I was angry with them for not being able to get that from them.
Did you feel like a victim?
Absolutely. Yeah. I was a complete victim, and I had that pity party for some time. And I was looking around, searching for the culprit. Who was to blame that I was in such a bad position? And I was crying my eyes out, and a complete and total victim. And by being a victim, I deprived myself of doing anything much, really. But after I reached that rock bottom, and after that particular question, I equipped myself for, I'm going to say, the battle at this point, because back then I thought the battle it was, but it was not. It was understanding that I was inviting the things into my life in order to learn something and to move forward and to become more spiritual, if you will, and to understand what really is important in life. And what is important in life? To live fully, to be present in the now, to enjoy life, to love and to be loved. And when I say love, I mean all kinds of love between spouses and between mother and daughter and, friends, and the given feeling that you want to share and give away and also receive. And not having that, the healing is difficult. And then some people say, but I'm not married, I don't have kids. Okay. Animals count as well.
Yeah.
You can extend love to your neighbors. You can take care of the neighbors' children. All kinds of love.
But you have to start with yourself, no? Right?
You have to first.
Love yourself,
thank you for reminding me of that.
Love anybody else. So.
Unless you love yourself and understand that, yes, you are worthy of everything there is in this world. No miracle. None.
No.
Thank you for reminding me of that. Yeah, that's number one.
Yeah.
Loving yourself and
realizing that we are all one, that we are all together. That you're not alone, even if you're physically alone. You're not alone. We are all in this together. I mean, everybody is alone, and nobody is alone. It's the same for everybody. So yeah.
And distance is really not important here. I mean, because I've learned how to feel people, and I've learned that when I feel that certain people are not on the sort of friendly wavelength, I learned that that's okay. It's okay for them to be where they are. But I also learned that I'm better off if I move away from them. And that does not mean to, cut off myself from them or burn the bridges, a far cry from that. But just to, in a loving way, step away from them, let them grow their own way. But please don't poison me. Don't, throw your toxic things into my face, because I've had enough. And, you do your job, I will do mine. We all need to do some learning, I think.
Everybody has their path in life.
Right. Yeah.
And we have to respect that. Let everybody have their path. And you asked me before why I think that people aren't connecting with their true creative core. And this is probably one of the reasons, because they let themselves be poisoned by people around them that are not good for them, that give them the wrong kind of energy. And they're also conditioned, I think. We're all conditioned to being victims almost, that circumstances and things around us, people around us, structures around us are what's creating our lives, when we should actually realize that we are our own creators. We are creating our own lives. We have such, as you were mentioning to me before this interview, that we are so mighty and we don't realize it. We have this, I mean, you are a living proof that you can heal yourself more or less physically, but we can also, I mean, heal ourselves mentally and psychologically and find happiness. And nobody can do it for us. Nobody can do it for us. We have to do it.
No. And I say to people who are very much against alternative, I say, fine, go and see the doctor, but please do understand that doctors can help you. But at the end of the day, it is you. Unless you want to heal, unless you want to live, no one can do that for you.
Exactly.
Whatever medication you take, whatever, surgery you go through, things cannot be changed for you unless you willingly cooperate and take responsibility and ownership of your own life. No one can do that.
That's so important.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now, you started this podcast, but then you said, as you've been talking about a little bit here, you felt that you needed your own voice to get out there also. So you have decided that you're starting your own, you're starting up life coaching, as you call it. So tell us more about that. What kind of life coaching is it that you are going to do here? What's your method, if there is any method?
I would like people to think of me as that helping hand, sort of once they are in a way decided that medication or scalpel can do certain things up to a point. And even if they have, like in my case, that clean bill of health document holding in their hands, that still is no sort of guarantee that tomorrow I'm going to be fine. Meaning I still am on, shaky legs, and I'm not certain about my tomorrow. And this is where my coaching method comes into play, because I want to sort of equip people with and make them understand of all the might that there is in every single one of us. No one is an exception to this rule. So basically, the 4 modules are more or less to do with our mind and thoughts and beliefs, self-limiting beliefs, the story we keep telling ourselves, but are not really sure whether other people see that same story, or is that just a construct of our imagination, say. I challenge that story, and then I ask them to really to pay attention to their physical state. If by any chance their physical state has a message for them and they are just oblivious of that, I mean, if you have this painful sensation in your body, like day in, day out, what is this telling you? Apparently, some steps were not taken in the right direction, right? Then limiting beliefs. Again, I invite people to suspend to willingly suspend beliefs. What I mean by that, when you are willing to believe that the movie you are watching, the thriller, is actually real, and I'm a living proof of that. When I watch a horror film, I'm shaking with fear. So my mind believes what the mind sees, right? Or I'm willingly ready to believe what I see. So I invite my clients to willingly suspend their limiting beliefs and put into their heads the more beneficial, the better, the more positive thoughts. And I then also reflect on the idea of how this is done in the body, because I think it would be such a blessing for people to understand the nocebo and placebo effect, to understand that when you have that negative thought, which is the consequence of you feeling poorly, if you understand that it's like a vicious circle going on, that one bad sensation in your body triggers yet another negative thought, and this negative thought then goes back to the body and makes that pain even stronger. If they understood that to put a positive thought into their mind can cut the vicious circle and change the chemistry, the release of chemical substances into our body. And in turn, that changes the physical body. If and on condition we do that for a certain period of time, we so change our personality. And when we change our personality, the world around us gets changed. I remember as a child, Anders, my granddad kept saying, "Oh, come on, just leave him. Change the way you are. Change yourself, and the world around you will get changed." And I thought, what are you talking about? I mean, how can I change him if I change myself? Of course, I was much too green and much too small and young to understand anything of the kind. But now I do. Once you change the mind, the chemical sort of substances released into our body are different. And that is a complete game changer for us. So for people to be able to understand that, it would be a true eye-opener, I think.
How do you see the connection between mind, body, and soul, if you might call it that? Well, it's a big question, of course. How does it all work? Where does it start? And what is it all one system?
I'm afraid I don't have the answer to this one, really. But one book comes to mind, authored by Michael A. Singer, The Untethered Soul, where he talks about the talker, the one who talks, the speaker, the observer, and the judge, the critic in our mind. So I don't think you can actually separate these 3 entities, really, because when I'm spiritual, inevitably I need to still stay in my temple, which is my physical body. And also when I'm emotional, I use my physical body. So I would say that, and I would, according to some, there are 4 bodies in one body of ours, and that is physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental. So there is this, I would say, this intricate like interplay, reciprocity between these 4, and not one can exist and function without the help of other 3.
No. I mean, you've already given a lot of excellent examples of how it works. When you watch a horror movie, it affects your body, and the nocebo and placebo effect, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Bruce Lipton talks a lot about that.
Yeah.
And talking about Bruce Lipton, I know that you've been influenced by Joe Dispenza, one of his friends also, and his workshops. And you've been to a couple of his workshops.
Joe Dispenza provided that insightful understanding of what is actually going on during meditation, for one thing. Because once you start meditating for real, your body is really such a nuisance. And now I understand why this is so, because your body is like that junkie being used to all the negativity, to all the toxins that you keep releasing into the body. And now all of a sudden you decide for broccoli. And of course, the junkie is not very happy. Sorry for, making it that illustrative. So he taught us a lot about that. He also gave me that beautiful understanding of what is really meant when you talk about heart and love, and how heart has the brain of its own. I was just, blown away when I heard that. First, when you encounter a person, it is your heart that responds. And rightfully so, because when we fall in love, we listen to our heart. Heart knows it all, and the heart has, all the information needed for it to decide. I love him. I don't. Sorry.
Yeah, but and Western science has been dismissing this for so long, which is really sad and stupid, because it's not a coincidence that poetry and literature for centuries has been talking about the heart being at the center when we are in love, as you say. And there's an institute in California, you're probably familiar with this, the Heart Math Institute.
Yeah.
Maybe you read about it.
And Dr. Joe Dispenza also cooperates intensely with them as well.
I'm not surprised. And what's really fascinating is, and this is measurable. They measure this. You mentioned this, that the heart is reacting first when we fall in love with somebody, and it's measurable. You can measure that the signals from the heart are several seconds before the signals from the brain, because the brain is just picking up on what the heart feels. And not only that, but when they have had these experiments where they have had people, they had a number of people watching images, more or less terrible, emotionally challenging pictures. Some are nice and some are terrible, and they watch these for a few seconds, and then the computer randomly decides to put out another picture there, and another picture, and another picture, and they measure what happens in the bodies of these people who are watching these pictures, these images, the pupils, heart rate, sweating, blood pressure, everything, all these things, and then the brain waves and the heart waves. And what they can see is that not only does the heart react before the brain, which we've already talked about, but the heart reacts up to 4 to 5 seconds before they've even shown the image. This is really fascinating. It's like the heart there is some kind of connection to a realm outside of time and space, if you see what I mean.
Absolutely.
So it knows what's going to happen. a few seconds. I think it's just
that's mind-blowing. Yeah, it is actually.
mind-blowing.
And it's chemistry. I hate to say it, because before, becoming familiar with the science, being a romantic as I am, I thought, oh, so nice, they fell in love. And it's, like something that is not very much, that has not much to do with science per se. But unfortunately, it's all about science. It's chemistry.
We have to change our view on what science is, I guess.
Yeah. And Bruce Lipton, since you mentioned him, just beautifully bridged the gap between science and spirituality. I mean, what he did, again, is really amazing, sort of pointing out that it is the environment that impacts, our sort of also genetic material up to a level. Okay.
Yeah.
So things can change when you are willing to change.
Exactly. And nature is very important to you, and healthy foods. I mean, speaking of broccoli, as you did before, healthy foods is central to you, and I guess also your life coaching method.
So the last two modules are really a lot to do with nature and creativity. And for some people, this may seem a bit insignificant, or at least less important. But in my view, the two aspects, or the two chapters in my coaching method, are of vital importance. We were talking about creativity as, being part of the divine, and when I say divine, what I mean is that sort of omnipresent information readily available for us to live, to thrive, to heal, if only we open up and we let it in. So I'm talking about this type of creativity that I invite. And as part of my coaching method, I ask people and invite them to do some journaling and to think about what is creativity for them and how can they be creative. And at the end of the day, I expect them to, do a project of their own. Speaking of nature, of course, nature is not having that. I think I would be in trouble in my healing process. So back in times when I was really, really frail, I decided to just go out, to walk barefoot, to hug trees.
Yeah.
Don't know whether you've done that. It's just, I wish I wouldn't have to stop hugging, that beautiful creatures, really, with all their rights. People wade in water, and I need to, and then I invite them to reflect on that and to tell me about the feelings they had. Of course, I understand not everyone is happy as I am living in the countryside. But I used to live in the city, and our terrace, you bet, was full of pots. Till one day my husband said, "Oh, come on, I see we need to, buy you a house and you need to have a garden." Okay. Because it was flowers and it was cherry tomatoes and lettuce and parsley and things. So to just, to be aware that we are human beings, we are very much part of nature. We cannot really go to nature because we are nature. Right. We are intrinsically one of that beautiful thing called nature. So, nature and creativity. I need to thank both of them.
I speak to my plants here in my apartment.
Beautiful. That's something. I mean,
silly, but I think it helps. Actually, I think they hear what I'm saying, or they don't hear what I'm saying, but they can. I think they can sense if I want it to be if I'm positive, they can sense that I want them to thrive.
I absolutely know this is true. Plants know when you enter and when you talk to them and when you go away on holiday, say, and other people take care of your plants. that changes the whole thing for them. I know that from my experience, because when I come home from holidays, my plants are not very happy, and I need to tend to them to put them in a better shape afterwards.
Mommy's back. Mommy's, don't worry.
Okay, you can laugh at that, and it's rightfully so.
Right.
But
yeah, I mean, plants are. I mean, they're living creatures. They're just part of the energy field around us, and that fluctuates all the time, depending on what kind of energy you emanate. And so, but you're actually or more or less self-sufficient on vegetables where you live now.
Well, not really. We cannot, because we don't have a lot large enough. But the kind of things that we ourselves don't grow, we buy from local shops. So we hate going to large supermarkets. And I can immediately see the difference when, say, tomatoes are bought from a supermarket or from a local shop. If not right there, sitting at the table in 2 hour time, because my sort of my body tells me this was not treated the way it should be.
No, and the taste is
the taste is different. The taste is absolutely different. It wasn't always like that. You must know that we used to live in the city, and when we moved out the outskirts of Ljubljana, we only had flowers. And then I started harvesting wild plants, and I sort of dried them and mixed them into various combinations. And that served us for our herbal infusions, for our teas in wintertime. But, as time went by, we thought, why not grow in vegetable as well and have some fruit? But we didn't know one thing about gardening. You must know that. So it's never too late. You can start, small baby steps. It doesn't matter. Little something. In cherry tomatoes, as I said, a bit of parsley and carrots, a little something. And it's amazing how different that food then feels when you consume it. It's different, and it's
Cherry tomatoes are wonderful. They're like candy. I love.
Yeah, they are actually. Yeah.
But what would you recommend people living in colder climates, like with long winters, like people up in where I live, or even further north, if they live in Greenland or whatever? They can't grow things for more than maybe 2 or 3 months a year. Then what should they do in the winter? Shouldn't they import tomatoes from Holland, or should they just eat? I don't know.
Well, anyway, it is my belief that I only eat tomatoes during summer.
Okay.
Because you know what tomato does to us? Tomato sort of cools us from inside out. Now, why would you want to eat tomato in winter and have that cooling sensation? You need to get warm in winter.
So what are we supposed to eat in the wintertime then?
I would eat the kind of food that is available in Sweden. I've never been to Sweden,
cans?
I'm afraid.
Canned food?
Just cans. I would explore, and I would start having my pots. I would start, growing something in pots.
That's true. You could do that indoor.
And you need to just experiment with it. Of course, you cannot have a garden naturally, but start small. A bit of parsley maybe from your pot. Wouldn't that be great? Or basil, or sage, whatever. Start with herbs and spices, and then see how far you can get. One thing though, we are leaving for last of a pack in a couple of days. When I'm there, you bet I harvest for herbs. I pick oregano, basil, bay leaf, rosemary, and I dry it. I dry all of that, and it's in winter when we cook. And my husband is a great cook, and when I smell that rosemary, it immediately puts me into that beautiful area where we harvested it. My husband also is in love with, wandering around and foraging. So you can do a bit of that and bring in things back to Sweden and start with herbs, start with little something, because asking me, herbs and spices really spice up our life and our food.
Exactly.
So
and conserving in different ways, like drying, as you say, is a method.
Yeah, drying or freezing. I also just the other day I made some basil pesto. And again, in winter we don't have basil here. It's very cold. It can get. I mean, we can have a lot of snow, but we have basil pesto that I made, and so throughout the year we harvest things. We make various preserves. I make great plum jam, and if you come to Slovenia, you will for sure get a jar to.
Yeah, I hope I will someday be able to go there and visit you. Yeah. This is, or we should all. I mean, talking about what we need to eat in the winter time if we live in cold climates. Maybe we should all just live in the tropics. That's where humankind, Homo sapiens, started, I guess. So that seems more logical. But humans are a very odd creature, actually. I think
odd species, very odd species.
I think we are not just another animal. That's my opinion, but that's another discussion. But I mentioned this to you the other day, that it is very odd when you think about it, that human beings need all these kinds of foods, all these different kinds of foods and vitamins and this and that, to thrive, to feel good, when many mammals just eat one thing, just one single thing, or maybe two or three, and they live for 30 years. So it's very strange, really.
I'm not sure whether this is really somehow connected to the blood type we are, but I heard that since if you are a certain blood type, then you are inclined to be a vegetarian or pescatarian or whatever. I don't know whether that is, I mean, that holds true, but I would say that the sort of diet that you have greatly depends on the area you live in. So when we during summer, when we are on holiday and we spend a lot of time on one of the islands in Croatia, say, our food chain is changed completely from, say, what we eat in spring or what we eat in winter. And since you mentioned Sweden, of course, in wintertime, I eat food that is warming, that makes me warm. And it's a lot of fermented food. We just also made some sort of, fermented cabbage, sauerkraut. And that type of food is very, very good and very healthy for us. And everyone can do that. When you buy food from your shop, you can ferment food at home, just using very simple principle, put in some salt on top of various layers and leaving that for some time, and it's fermented. Baking and making your own bread, again, is one feature that we do on regular basis. In winter, not so much. In summer, because it's hot. So we basically need to explore and see what really is in agreement with us, because we are different. Some people say, like, really need meat. I'm not sure whether this is true, but that's what they claim. And they eat meat on a daily basis. I think I would die doing something like that, but they do, and they are quite happy with that. So
yeah, that's a complicated question. I mean, but I don't have any moral views on that. I mean, chacun son truc. Everyone has to find their own way, as we say.
Right.
So if they think that's right for them. I haven't eaten meat for almost 30 years now, so that would be probably a big problem for me as well if I would try to eat red meat on a daily basis. So I think we're soon wrapping this up, but to end this wonderful conversation, I know that we promised each other that we weren't going to talk about politics or things like that, and we won't. And there has been a big, some kind of a pandemic going on, and we won't talk about that either, or not directly anyway. But I would like to ask you generally what you think about the times that we're living in. Are these times particular times, or have humankind always said that, oh, this is a crucial time we're living in, this is a crucial, or is it something special with this time that we're living in? Are we in for changes, do you think? Do you see, can you sense that there are big changes going on out there, or is it just business as usual? What's your view on these times?
What I feel is that many of us have changed greatly. And it's one thing when you sort of have this theory and when you believe something. It's quite another when you need to put things into practice. So if you ask me, these crucial times, which are quite difficult, to be honest, and regardless of how you look upon the facts, certain facts, I would say that our beliefs are put to test. And if we can, basically, can we live what we think about? Can we walk the talk? Can we really be what we talk about? This is the question here. And asking me so far, I've done an amazing job, I think, because I recovered from COVID, and I did it my way. I was meditating every single day, couple of times a day, and I allowed my body to go through it in its own best way. In other words, I got out of the way because I understand. Okay, so human beings, we are perfect. We really are. I mean, if you just think of all the mechanisms and systems running in our body, and yet certain things are much beyond us. We cannot understand how this world is created. And if we are wise enough to just step back and let the master, the creator, do its wonderful job, we're safe. To basically understand the nocebo and placebo effect, and to respect the almighty knowledge that is not in us, but around us. I think we should test this. And I've been testing it, and I am ever so happy that I've learned so many things, and I intend to keep on going my way. I'm not saying I'm not going to change my opinion in the future. I might, but I need to see that certain claims, certain statements will withstand the test of time.
Yeah.
When I have those answers, and if the need be also, which is not very likely, but you never know, then I might change my mind and then do something. But for the time being, I think what I've learned, I need to act. I need to be the man in the arena. I need to walk the talk, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and my question was broader. Actually, I guess I was asking about crucial times in a general sense, not just having to do with this pandemic, but I also often talk on my podcast about the fact that we are integrating. The globe is integrating. Humankind is integrating for the first time, as far as we know. I mean, there might have been integrated civilizations hundreds of thousands of years ago, but we don't know about that. Those are just myths and legends. But as far as we know, this has never happened before. So we are in direct contact with every other human being in real time, if we want to, which is something that I think changes us in many ways. So the illusion of separation is more illusory than ever, I would say.
Yes, I agree on this one, because And that's also part of what I intend to teach. You are never alone. And even when you think that your thoughts are yours alone and no one else's, you are so wrong.
Yes.
I can feel you. I can feel what you're thinking. I don't know what you're thinking, but I can feel you. And but what is the most critical here is it bounces back. It causes that ripple effect. And if you are mean to other people, you're going to get that back, unfortunately or happily. So just make sure you do kind things to other people, because then kind things are going to be given back to you naturally. And that will be just incredible. And as you said, we would all be one body, coherent, loving, sort of, I don't know, it's not a body anymore. It's like life, right?
Yeah, but we are one entity in a way.
One entity, yes, was the word I was looking for.
That's humankind. Branka, Milangela, where can listeners and viewers find you if they're interested in what you're doing?
Well, if what I was talking about resonated with your audience, I can be found on Facebook and Instagram. On the Milangela Soul Garden, and also on Anchor. And I'm also on YouTube, but in order for me to be on the Milangela Soul Garden on YouTube, I need certain number of followers, and I'm far behind that. So, but basically, Milangela Soul Garden is the key combination word.
Fantastic. Excellent. Thank you so much for joining me, for gilding the show with your presence, and good luck now with your life coaching and also the podcasting. If you're continuing with that, maybe you're not doing that, but
I intend to continue whatever comes my way, and definitely podcasting for the time being still. If I may, I'd like to finish this off with Wayne Dyers, who is my alter ego. So his words, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Wonderful. Thank you.
It's been my pleasure to be on your podcast again. Thank you ever so much, Anders.
See you, Branka. Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you like this video and other interviews and talks on Mind the Shift, please like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate all the support. Thank you.